Did you guys know that despite it being Jover and the West having fallen and have billions must die, better things are in fact still possible? It's crazy, I know. Crazy concept. Second best racist now? Never. I never cede that title to anybody. I'm still the best racist, even though I came in second place. Although, to be fair, that guy has the purple line, which means he's Korean. He might be a better racist than me. More perfect union. Yes. I recently talked about... don't forget the smile thing for all the Nazi copy-paste. Oh, yeah. That's right. The, fuck. I forget exactly what it is, but I think I know what you're talking about. A little while ago, I mentioned that the state of Illinois was going to pay off $1 billion of medical debt. Apparently, other states have noticed that. And now we have, for More Perfect Union, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs. Any globe changer is a wonderful thing. I'm actually from Canada, by the way. Hi. Hi, welcome to chat, MSX Matt. Good to have you here. Oh, I understand it's hard to talk and race at the same time. Based globe mentioned? True! Globalize my agenda. That's so true. Yeah, I'll just read some details of the story from memory. The Arizona governor, Katie Hobbs, has said that, like, the state of Arizona is going to use $30 million in federal money to cancel $2 billion of medical debt. People go into debt paying their medical bills, and the governor of Arizona has decided, you know what, that's actually really fucking hurting people and the state economy and whatever. So we're going to take that debt, we're going to buy that debt, and we're going to just pay it off so they don't have to pay it. Very, very Christ-like of them, I must say. Canceling the debts, forgiving the debts. There's actually, I think there's a line in the Bible or in the Lord's Prayer or something about forgive our debts as we forgive our debtors or something like that. So, anyways, I don't want to get too sidetracked. The post also mentioned, I think, that Arizona was not the only state doing this, and they're not the only state considering doing stuff like this either. It seems like this is a new trend in left-leaning policy in the United States. Is that okay? I guess holding this red shell was a good instinct. Oh, never mind. Get our mushroom. It seems like a new trend in state-level policymaking in America is canceling people's debts so that they don't have to pay like prohibitively expensive bills and potentially like lose their homes and their jobs and whatever. It's also a sin for hundreds of years to take interest on loans. That's right, and it is still a sin. Usury is still a sin. However, usury is one of those things where if you study how economies of scale work in a moneyed world, in a world that has money and has economies of scale, interest is kind of necessary. It obviously doesn't need to be as high as it is. A lot of the reason that interest is as high as it is just because fucking corpos that lend money to other people or even other corpos are greedy bastards that want to get the maximum return on their investment possible. In fact, a lot of times the most predatory lending practices have really high interest rates because they don't actually intend to collect the principal at all. They intend the interest to be so high that you never actually get to pay the loan back. This is particularly harmful for the poorest, the poorest people in America. This is where the Jewish banker stereotypes comes from, because it wasn't a sin for them to take interest. Yes and no. The reason the Jewish banker stereotype exists is because the church deemed it a sin to take interest on loans, for usury to be a thing. But at the same time, they shunned Jews out of all the professions they deemed to be legitimate. Jews were marginalized into the only profession where they were really allowed to function, which is banking. There were, and I think in some places still are, a disproportionate number of Jews in the banking industry, because historically there's been a prejudice against them being allowed to work in other lines of work. And that's where the Jewish banker stereotype comes from. And that was the source of all sorts of anti-Semitic tropes about them being greedy and money grubbing and whatever, when that's actually not true. I mean, no more than it is for any other group of people, It's just the fact that, like, oh yeah, we won't let you do business in these kinds of things, so you have to, like, they had to turn to banking. Like, for fuck's sake, they even, in some countries, Jews were literally forbidden from baking bread. That's where the bagel comes from. In Germany, Jews were not allowed to bake bread, so they had to boil it. And that's how the bagel was invented, because they figured out you could make a bread in a ring shape, and it would boil nicely, like you'd be able to boil it. Based Lithuania moment, they were not banned from baking bread. Oh, true. Very based. But yeah, that's all that stuff about usury, interest, whatever, blah, blah, money lending. The point is, I described certain, like, predatory lending practices, and these are unfortunately really prevalent in the American medical industry, because medicine's a for-profit industry in the United States. It's not handled like a public good or service. Oh, I got him. Sorry, Matt. You know how it is, Mario Kart Wii Worldwides and such. But with hospital bills being really high, sometimes the payment plan or whatever is like, oh yeah, you can go in installments and stuff, but the sometimes in the tens of thousands of dollars amount of, like, oh, like, this bill is way too much. People get trapped in debt for a long time. So some states have decided that, like, nah, that's not okay. We're gonna clear that up. If I go back, I'm gonna go back to More Perfect Union here. Yeah, More Perfect Union points out, to date, this is the biggest debt cancellation plan in the whole country. $2 billion's a lot of money, especially for, like, Arizona is not one of the biggest states in America. Certainly not by a long shot. It's one of the bigger states in the Southwest, but, like, you compare it to one of the states like New York or even somewhere like Illinois or Washington, or especially somewhere like California. California being the biggest state in the country. It's decent size, but it's not that big. $2 billion in medical debt for up to 1 million residents. That's a lot. That's a lot. Ah, here we go. Yes, these are the other states I was thinking of. At least 2 other states, Connecticut and New Jersey, have moved to erase medical debt owed by their residents, in addition to a growing number of municipal and county governments across the nation. So yeah, this, not just with like the state level, but at the local level, governments are saying, hey, what if we, forgave the debts, as we, of course, forgive the debtors, and all that. USA has crazy big states, except Wyoming, and a few others. I mean, even Wyoming is big in terms of landmass, just, very small population. What? I've never seen that! I didn't know that could happen. That's kind of wild. There are only 2.9 million in Mississippi. I thought it was bigger. No, Mississippi's not that big. A lot of the southern states are a little bit smaller than they would seem, except I think Georgia and Florida. Those are the 2 biggest ones in the South. If you don't count Texas, which I don't really. Georgia population. Yeah, there are about 10 million people, almost 11 million actually, that live in Georgia. Florida has 21 million. Yeah. When you get to the swampy territories of the United States, there's not that many people living there. But I do want to predict something positive that might come out of the debt cancellation from New Jersey, Connecticut, Arizona, Illinois, and various other localities. I think this is the new frontier of policymaking, and this could, like, have implications for making these services just outright, public and paid for by the government, right? It could be like this process of slow integration where states and local governments are beginning to recognize that, okay, letting people just languish in debt over this sort of stuff, over these sort of expenses, is really fucking bad for our economies, for these people, for like in many, many different ways. It's just bad, right? So what we'll do is just clear those debts, right? They clear it the one time, but then that just sets people back to square one, ultimately. So at some point, they're going to wind up back in the situation, or potentially they're currently discussing right now, like, this is just going to happen again, theoretically, in the future. So how can we preempt this? Maybe we'll have to go through a few iterations of canceling the debts, like, cyclically. But then at that point, you start to wonder, shouldn't we just have these things be services that you don't need to go into debt for in the first place, that you don't need to pay for out of pocket? Therefore, there's not even the risk of going into debt. And I think this is the start of that conversation in the U.S. And if that doesn't make sense, what I'm trying to say is, right, canceling the debts is a one-time quick fix, and states and local governments know that. Eventually, they're going to think about, and they might already be thinking about, making these services public and free at the point of service, right? Because these are services that are so essential that, like, you can't go without them. So there's always going to be the incentive for them to just be so expensive that people will go into debt for it anyway. And by that same right, they're so essential that, like, they pay for themselves, right? If people don't go into debt over medical expenses, they live healthier. They're able to have more pocket money, and that's pocket money that then they'll go and spend. And that's good for everybody, because that's what people tend to do with extra money. And economies and communities really suffer when people are in debt for such essential things like this.